I want you to find John's Gospel. Let's find chapter 1. Gospel of John. You found it. We stand, chapter 1. Find verse 14. And we'll read through verse 18. We read from the New King James. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, This was he of whom I said, He who comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him. Amen. You may be seated. I'm going to begin a series. We're going to be going through the Gospel of John. We want to look at Jesus through the eyes of John. For the title for today's sermon, There is Nothing Wrong with Him. There is nothing wrong with Him. When I was in probably junior high, about 6th, 7th grade up until about the 9th grade, in the summertime, used to be kids played outside, but they don't do that much anymore. Get stuck in front of the TV with video games. But back 455 years ago when I was a kid, video games were there, but they were very rare, and all we had was a couple of lines on the screen. Wasn't much you could do with it, the dot going back and forth, and after about 10 minutes you were tired. So we spent a lot of our time outside. We played. In the summertime, one of the things that we loved to play was basketball because it was cheap. Didn't take a lot of equipment. All you had to have was a ball. We didn't really need a court. We didn't really have any courts. A lot of us couldn't afford the membership at the YMCA. So we go over Billy Ray Amos' house. Billy Ray had this dirt court. You know what that is? That means the grass just wasn't growing in the spot. And his father had put up a pole that was probably there to hang clothes. And he had put up this makeshift piece of wood for a backboard. And then we had some kind of rim, and for the life of me, I think it was a bicycle rim that was up there. And we had that to play on. Now, the ball was spalding. It was perfect. It was great. But the court, it was uneven, had dips and rocks and all kinds of stuff in it. So when you bounce the ball, sometimes it didn't come straight back up. And the goal was probably only about 9 feet up. And because it was that rim, it was a little bit bigger than regulation size. The backboard, because of the way that it was nailed, you had to really throw the ball hard against the backboard in order for it to bounce off and go into the rim. So we would play in the summer. All summer long, out there in the heat, that was back when you wore your socks all the way up past your calf and stripes. So when you left, your socks were probably brown or black from all of the dirt. But what would happen is we get back into school. And when basketball season came around and you went to try out for the basketball team, you were now in a world of trouble. There was nothing wrong with the ball. Same ball, different court. That ball was made to bounce on a smooth floor like this one. It was made to be shot into a rim that was a certain size, that was 10 feet high. The backboard was solid. So, if you tried to shoot on that backboard like you did back on that dirt court, everybody would yell out brick. But you were throwing the ball as hard as you could. Consequently, a lot of guys make the team because they weren't used to that court. And then they would blame the ball. Something's wrong with the ball. This ball is too heavy. This ball is too light. This ball isn't bouncing right. I come to realize pretty soon, because, I was good, I was making the team. Come to realize, though, I needed to stay off of that dirt court if I was going to play basketball in school. That ball was created to be played on that court. It wasn't made to play on that dirt court. Because on that dirt court, you can kind of make people go in a direction where there was a hole and you knew they couldn't dribble right. On that dirt court, you knew that you could pass the ball to somebody and throw it off of something on the ground and make it bounce funny, but you couldn't do that out on that smooth, regular court. That ball is a lot like Jesus. Perfect. It's perfectly round. But that ball was meant to be played on a smooth surface. It was meant to be played with a goal that was a certain size and that was 10 feet off the ground. But what a lot of us have done is we take that perfect ball and we put it in a place where it didn't belong. We were trying to make it do stuff it wasn't supposed to do. It kind of looked like the real thing, but it really wasn't the real thing. And then when you get on the real thing, you get upset and blame the ball for not bouncing properly. We get upset because when we took the shot, normally that would go in. But now, all of a sudden, the goal was too small, so the ball must have been too big. We acted as if it was a different ball at the school than the one that we were actually playing with. What a lot of people have done with Jesus is they've taken Jesus and they try to utilize him in a place that he wasn't meant to be utilized. That they're trying to get things out of Jesus that they shouldn't be trying to get. Jesus came for a specific reason, for a specific purpose, and he provides a specific thing. Amen. And anytime you take Jesus and try to misuse him or use him wrong, it's kind of funny how we start to blame him for what we want because it's not working the way we want it to. So what we're going to do is we go through John, is we're going to look at Jesus and who he really is, and what he really said he came to be, and what he really came for, and how we really utilize Jesus today. And for those of you that thought that perhaps you were supposed to be using Jesus to get a promotion on the job, I got news for you. That's that dirt court. If you thought that Jesus was the one that was going to help you get to the next level in life, that's the dirt court. If you thought that Jesus was the one that was going to make everybody else act right and be fair, that's on the dirt court. If you thought that Jesus wasn't going to be the one that was going to make you above everybody else and put you on a pedestal and so you can walk around and say you're the apple of God's eye, just like David, that's on the dirt court. That's not Jesus' purpose. So what John does is he shows us exactly who Jesus is, what his purpose is, and then how we utilize Christ. Y'all follow me? So when John was writing, John had the other three Gospels, tradition tells us, he already knew about it. Matthew, Mark, and Luke. His purpose was not to write what had already been written. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, there's what we call synoptic Gospels. They kind of go together. They match each other real well. What John looked at was that there were some spiritual things about Christ that he wanted to get across to us. Some understanding that we would have so that when we look at Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we could fill in some of the blanks because they talked about what Jesus did, where Jesus went, what Jesus said, but he deals with the why and not just the what. He helps us out so we don't run to the other Gospels and start reading stuff into them. John says, no, this is what he came for. The theme is in John 20, 30, and 31, and it says, and truly Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. That is the purpose that John wrote for. Now I want you to catch that. He said, this was written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. He didn't say life in your name. He didn't say that your life was going to be successful according to man. Again, that's on that dirt court. We got a whole lot of it. I'm going to say a whole lot of teachers that perhaps are sincerely teaching, but they're trying to tell us that the purpose of Christ is for us. Not understanding that the purpose of Christ was to save us for him. Y'all get that? There's a little difference there. Christ didn't come for us. Christ came to save us for him. There is a difference. See, if I'm saved for him, then it's about him and not about me. All right? So, remember that John now is trying to get us to understand some things in the spiritual realm of life. So, when we get to verse 14, we're going to see the person of Christ. He says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, first of all, if we go back to the first verse in chapter 1, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What you need to pay attention to there is the word was. In the beginning, that's the beginning of time, the beginning of creation, it says was. That means that the Word was already here before time. All right? So this is pointing out that Jesus is eternal. He was here before time. He is eternal. Now, the only eternal that we have is God. Right off the bat, he's trying to point us to the fact that Jesus is God. Some of us think he's our own boy. Some of us think he's Santa Claus. You know how to do Santa Claus. If you've been naughty and nice, the only reason we want to be nice is because Santa Claus is coming to town. We're looking for a present. That's it. Some of us think he's Santa Claus. He's not Santa Claus. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. Get that? And the Word was God. All right? Verse 2, he was in the beginning with God. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. That would be a reference to the Jews, his fleshly part. He came and they didn't receive him. They should have known who he was. They didn't receive him, verse 12. But as many as received him. Now, they didn't receive him means they didn't believe. All right? So as many as received or believed him, to them he gave the right to become children of God. To those who believe in his name. Now catch that. So it's all about believing who he is. If you don't believe who he is, you're in a world of trouble. If you believe he's just a homeboy, if you think he's some kind of Santa Claus, if you believe he's just a good man, you have missed the boat. If in the beginning he was, that means that he is God. You have to believe that he is God, or you will miss out on who he really is. And if you don't know who he really is, you're going to take him as we would that perfect ball and try to utilize him in ways that you can't. And it doesn't work. That's why so many Christians get frustrated with life. Jesus. They have not gone to the right point. So in life, we get frustrated and we start talking about how Jesus didn't do this and Jesus didn't do that. And then we go, God, where are you? That's it. As if he disappeared. That's it. As if he isn't everywhere. As if David told a lie when he said, if I make my bed in hell, that he's there. If he's there, it means he's here. It means he hasn't gone anywhere. The issue is not with him. There's nothing wrong with him. There's something wrong with us. Amen. All right, so he says then, when we get down back into verse number 14, he says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, the Word became flesh. The Greek word there is the Greek word logos. Now, there are two Greek words that we know that are translated word. One of them is rhema, the other one is logos. It blows me away. I hear people all the time talking about, speak a rhema word. I'm like, they're saying I'm going to speak a word. There's nothing special about the word rhema. It just means word. You can speak a rhema word, that's fine. Literally, you ought to just say, I'm going to speak a rhema. Well, okay, you're going to speak a word. But logos has a different connotation in the Greek. Logos means the expressed image.